Hello everyone, my name is Chandra Jackson and I'm here to present to you today how to use system dynamics to build a resilient finance function of the future. I'm speaking to the CFOs of large or small corporations operating in today's modern financial processes, structures, and practices. You most likely lead a group that includes finance managers, directors, and analysts who use intelligent technologies for reporting and business insights and analyzing data. The goal of your group has been to help ensure financial stability, minimizing financial risk, and improving the decision-making process. Activities and tasks include budget and financial planning, financial analysis, and control. Like many executives, you had to deal with the ramifications of the COVID-19 pandemic. You were forced to rethink how you work with your team and embrace the realization that work from home is the new norm. You've had to foster new relationships with your team, collaborate differently, and position work-life balance as a principal value within your organization. What if I told you there's an opportunity to broaden and open your mind to what's more to come? By the year 2040, executive leadership will see a business ecosystem immersed in the powers of digitization, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and automation. The corporate finance function will have to align with this inevitable future. CFOs who do not act now will see a significant skills gap within their talent pool. Recruitment efforts will be wasted on attracting inadequate talent that will not have the necessary skill set to shift in this new direction. You, the CFO, will then have an outdated foundation and position within the agency. In this presentation, I would like to introduce you to system dynamics concept, which will help you gain a deeper understanding of the systems and structures of your current function from an organizational and behavioral perspective, while also linking to a new inevitable future. First, let's discuss some challenging issues that are facing corporate finance. Pre-pandemic, finance teams typically struggle with overwhelm due to small staff to workload ratio. Finance teams typically work late when considering month and year-end closing and reporting. And finance teams have also been criticized as working in silos and being unapproachable. Another main issue that has been cause for concern is the difficulty in providing real-time data. Most organizations have reporting cycles that are 1 to 2 months behind. These could be barriers that could be resolved through developing a digital strategy. Current trends in corporate finance, you will see blockchain, which is significantly affects how businesses process and enforce contracts and records. This could be one trend that is coming the corporate finance way. One of the most transformative applications of blockchain is the use of smart contracts, where payments and the transfer of currency can be automated. The second trend that will affect corporate finance sector is machine learning, which could replace human work and tasks and release employees to focus on more value-added work. The last trend is artificial intelligence. Although many companies have used AI to automate processes, many are beginning to see use to help solve deeper business problems. Now I would like to discuss three current trajectories of finance functions that do not come up to speed with what is to come in the future. First, a lack of digital processes would mean loss of potential insight that could be gained for improving decision-making process. CFOs who do not act now will see a finance team that lacks the skill set to develop, implement, enforce a digital strategy. Your organization will perform much lower than peer agencies who took that action and well before these strategies become more mainstream. You could expect peer agencies to outperform in productivity and profits. And here is a brief timeline of the corporate finance industry. Um, so as you can see, in the beginning, 1900s is when you saw the rise of managerial capitalism. And as you go along the timeline, you'll see many innovations that have come that have helped to manage and put uh, corporate finance in play to where decision makers could basically improve in the decision making along the process. And then you come to today where we see modern financial management and analysis through the use of smart software, and that helps to again improve decision making process. And so now we're getting ready for the next leg in the next 15 years, where you're going to see more shifts in corporate finance. Now I'd like to discuss with you the system dynamics concept and give you a little bit of history. In this section, I will discuss the benefits of system dynamics, basic concepts, why this tool is important, and the potential risks and opportunities when used. Three key benefits of system dynamics is you understand that it's the system that you're working on currently, where you're trying to transition from the today's modern financial practices to the practices of the future. You recognize that you are working on a system that's within a system. Also, thinking it from a system dynamics standpoint, you look at your system as the big picture. You can go from looking at the big picture to seeing the system as a whole, and then going to what the system looks like from a long term and both a short term perspective. So some basic concepts to think about is when thinking from a system dynamics perspective is systems thinking. Again, systems thinking is all about thinking systems are within systems. Everything is a part of a system, and recognizing you would need to be able to recognize interconnections between the parts of a system, and understanding everything that's outside of that system and how they come into play. And also understanding systems behavior. Everything is event focused. We can only react to each new event and everything is basically cause and effect. There are patterns, structures, and that are built into every system. So let's talk about how we define systems. A system exists within a larger system and has specific purposes it carries out. A system is set to maintain stability through various fluctuations and adjustments. In a system, all components are interactive, interrelated, and interdependent. All parts must be present to carry out its purpose, and all parts must be arranged in a specific way for the system to work. This pyramid represents how a system is structured. There are three distinct levels that make up the foundation of a system. The first level is events that only give superficial evidence of a system in place. Humans tend to focus on events rather than think about their cause or how they fit together in a larger part. The second level in a system is the structure, is the patterns, which shows the trends or changes in events over time. While an event represents a single moment, a pattern of events would allow the observer to see a deeper meaning in the structure behind the system. The third level is, and just on the slide before, what I also wanted to include, the third level of the system is the patterns, which allow a deeper understanding of the system. At this level, the observer can begin to ask questions to determine the cause of the pattern. And on this particular slide, I would like to point out the 6 living systems principles. Basically, a system should have a purpose. All systems need a purpose to be consistent. All systems need to be boundless to have its own identity. And novelty is a need for all systems to create new things and maintain its own health. Connectedness and diversity, basically all systems need to be diverse for it to have, it needs to have diverse components for it to work. Next, all systems need to be considered as a whole and not broken up into fragment parts. Lastly, all systems need to be reflective. So now I'd like to tell you about the 4 steps in the systems dynamic process. For the first step, you will need to consider your organization's readiness for change before you begin to build a foundation for change. So that is a very critical assessment that you would need to do. And you would do this by engaging and collaborating with key stakeholders and process owners. For the second step, you will need to clarify and determine the reality of the change that's needed. And you do this by conducting interviews with process owners, gaining insight from users, and developing preliminary systems. Third, you will need to engage stakeholders on deciding the needed change. During this step, the case for change needs to be discussed with comparisons of the as-is state. And lastly, you will need to begin to take action on the needed change to bridge the gap from the as-is to the to-be state. It is highly important to consider the events, patterns, and structure of the to-be state as you work through these steps. In this section, I would like to discuss the corporate finance function. The current state in the modern finance function is collecting and storing data on transactions, focusing on the quantity and quality of the information. Processes are important, are supported by the technology department. Reports, the finance function reports information to decision makers. Data is standardized and aggregated, and then the information is slow to process. Why is this a problem? These practices are soon to become outdated, and the finance function needs to move in the direction of digitization for it to provide more meaningful insight and conduct more value-added activities. So as you can see in this diagram, it shows the current state of the current finance function. We see that right now we're operating with modern financial practices. We are using technology to support those practices. Digital The digital infrastructure is separate from the modern financial practices function. This entail causes a slow process in reporting of data, which makes the decision-making process kind of behind because they're getting the information late when if they had it at that point in time, they can make improved decision-making at that point in time. And then eventually that leads to a competitive disadvantage or a diminished competitive disadvantage. Now I'd like to get with you on what the desired state should be. The future of the finance function should have the ability to provide more value-added information, ability for finance team members to take a more value-added role and responsibilities. There needs to be a digitized finance function and processes. Finance teams need to be seen as business partners to the CEO and the rest of the agency leaders. The decision-making process needs to be significantly improved, and we need to increase the organization's capacity to process information. And as you can see, this is the current state. Sorry, this is a mistake. This should have been future state diagram, where you would say, we would say digitized finance function. We would see more value-added roles and responsibilities for the finance team. We will see the finance department will be seen as a business partner. Timely, value-added information would be a plus. We would have improved decision-making process, and the company would then be able to maintain and improve that competitive advantage, which also, in comparison with their peers that will be going this route, you want to be able to be able to maintain that. Now, the following are some opportunity and risk that will come into play when adopting the future route. For opportunities, just to point out a few, artificial intelligence could enforce rules-based action, where today we have employees that will be, ensure that there's compliance in the rules that have been set by a particular role or task. There will be support coordination across silos. There will be more transparency and less human manipulation. There will also be improved scalability, growth, potential, and access to new markets. One other thing that I think is very important is that you would be able to have a broader talent pool with the geography of employees being less important. Now, some risks to consider. You would need to consider your communication strategy because what we're seeing now, when you go into a more digitized standpoint, we're already just from the coming from the pandemic, most of us are working from home now, and so that is already something that we're having to deal with as far as improved communication. But as we go to a more digital route, that communication is definitely going to be more important, considering you might have employees in another time zone. You will also see potential security and compliance issues that you will need to address. There will be difficulty in installing company culture. And, again, going back to the communication and collaboration with your team members, you will see diminished brainstorming, problem solving, knowledge sharing, and socialization. But these are all things that if the strategy is built with these in mind, you can still overcome. The following are strategic implications for not going the digitized route. Again, you would have an outdated corporate finance practices, diminished performance and productivity, and diminished competitive advantage. So I'd like to discuss some next steps. Start talking with your leadership, beginning with your CEO, and your leadership meetings. Start getting consensus to begin to understand what further things that you might not have thought of can be a part of the analysis of what you need to do to take these steps to become more digital. Engage your stakeholders, get input from them to find out how to start beginning that roadmap for change, as well as getting that support. And lastly, I would suggest getting a consultant. Consultants can help ask the questions that you didn't think to ask, get you the insight that you need to start taking this path forward. This is some information about me. If you want to follow me, thank you for listening to my presentation.